Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight here in person and online in front of your computers as well. I don't know where you are, but I'm going to start right away without delay because Orhan and I are very excited to talk about the journey behind this book tonight. So Orhan, I'm going to ask
we're starting so quick.
Yeah, I'm going to ask my first question.
This is my third time here, but I'm still nervous.
This book brings together the painter you left behind in order to become a writer and the writer you became in the end. Can you tell us more about why you stopped painting and what made you return to it?
Okay, I come from a family of civil engineers. My grandfather was a civil engineer, my father, uncle were civil engineers, and I was expected to be a civil engineer. And I believed in them, but since even in my childhood between the ages of 7 and 22, but when I was 7, 8, 9, I was doing drawing and everyone was, oh, you're so talented. So they say, this one is going to be not a civil engineer, but an architect. This was a solution. I would even go to the same architectural, same engineering school, but somehow a screw was loose in my head. And I enrolled to the School of Engineering Architecture, studying architecture. But this whole story I told actually in my book, Istanbul, why I stopped painting and my desire or study of architecture, I dropped out and began writing novels. It's a mystery. It's the most popular question I've asked all of my life. So we understand you wanted to be a painter, so why are you now a writer? There is no one single answer to that. I am sure people have this kind of anxieties and changes in their programs of life, in their ambitions. It was a problematical period of my time. But one thing I always say that hoping to be one day a painter prepared me to a life of a solitude that I knew that I would live in a room alone. Yes, in the first, till the age of 22, I thought I'd be a painter living alone in a room or a studio. Then it was easy to make that decision because now I'm going to be a writer, and then I made that decision. But it's still a mystery, although I wrote a book called Istanbul about that, because I used to go out into the streets of Istanbul and take photos, and then take these photos and make impressionistic. These pictures that we're going to see behind us are also partly impressionistic, partly Chinese painting, but we're going to come to that. And hoping that one day I'll be a successful painter. This is the beginnings of my life. Yes, then then I begin to, one day, around the age, when I was 40s, 45-ish, then now that I'm at least a famous writer in Turkey and some international fame, I went into a stationery shop and get out with 2 bags full of painting materials. It's like a kid who is forbidden to eat chocolates or something like that is buying chocolates. So I went and began to slowly begin to paint. But while, on the other hand, I was very shy, now partly because I am an established author, partly because I'm not sure about myself, partly because it's an artistic venture that I'm not sure about, and it's also it has a private thing. Maybe I should add this, that when I paint, I am more myself. But what is yourself? When I paint, I feel like a guy who is singing in the shower, okay? The guy who is singing in the shower never thinks that they're recording you and they're going to sell this and make money and give some part of it to you. So I was more irresponsible, more playful, happy, singing and singing. This is painting. But then when I write, I'm more cerebral. I'm like a chess player. I am also testing. Then I have the tendency to look at the empty page in a more determined fashion. I know this is my life. I am going to do something to this empty page. My mind does not operate now, but it will. While I did not have this patience with painting, and I continued to write and secretly to paint, continued to write and secretly painted.
Did you write these journals with the intention of printing them, publishing them one day?
Yeah, yes. Okay, this is such a big subject that when you publish your diary, my God, everyone is saying you sound a bit fake or a bit artificial. It's not real yourself. Why, if it's a diary, so why do you publish it? I'll do a quick revisit of the idea of keeping a journal. People used to keep journals. Why? Because they bury the treasure here and then keep a notebook and write, I buried from 3 steps back to the south to the house, or you write something secret, you write a code, or you say something that it's not allowed. I hate my father, I hate the flag, I hate the king, this kind of thing. For our religious or anti-religious ideas, people keep them private. At the age of 7, my mother gave me, not 7, I'm sorry, 9, my mother gave me a green notebook which was produced in Turkey, which had a leather cover, but simplistic, cheap thing, but has a lock, a diary.
I remember those.
A diary had a lock, so it immediately suggested, given by my mother, you can have your private thoughts, but I'm sure she would, when I go to school, she would open it and read what's written there. So I never wrote it, but the only line in the whole diary is, I still keep it, my mother gave me this beautiful book, I'm very happy. But there is no second page. Not because I was afraid that, but because I was not a writer then. To be a writer is, you learn, you concentrate, you take the burden of filling this page with meaningful thing. That is a professional thing. I was in that sense an irresponsible painter, never thought of selling anything. One day I'll be Picasso or whatever, but that we have so much time to go there. So the idea of writing something secret is related to with my idea of diary. But of course, in 1930s, the French writer who published also with my French publisher, Gallimard, André Gide, ding, suddenly published excerpts from his diary, and the whole world learned something. Now, the idea of diary by André Gide completely, radically changed. Suddenly, we have someone who is living and who is publishing his thoughts about art, this person, that person, or his habits, Nietzsche, everything. Every small little thought he would write, and he was a good writer. Then the whole world began imitating André Gide. Suddenly, including Turkey, all the writers began to keep diaries. The importance of the journal is publishing your journal, parts from your journal when you're alive, is that you have an idea. In the regular times, normal times, if you have an idea, say a paragraph, you have to write a long essay or find a literary space to publish that. Diary was the literary space André Gide invented. Then many also, Peter Handke, Max Frisch, many writers imitated André Gide, knowing that these parts that they are writing will be published when they're alive, begin to keep diaries. But they were now maybe not literary diaries, but not normal diaries, but literary diaries with the intention of publishing them. And also Peter Handke did experimental things, others also went into different directions. So when I started writing to my diaries, I was not thinking, but how much, since I knew André Gide in the 1930s, he also came to Turkey, wrote about Turkey. The Turks hated that book.
Yes.
So when you have a diary, you know in the end it will be published. Maybe the correct question, do you know that when you are keeping these diaries, you are to publish them when you're alive? No. But I don't want to die. And then people, they are interesting. I also want to get some artistic. I'm very shy about that. Embarrassed is the right word. I wanted to get some recognition as an quote artist, which is not the point here, actually.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you a practical question, and I know the answer, but I want everyone to hear the answer. When do you usually write these pages? Before going to bed or waiting for the subway? When
No,
during the day?
rarely before going to bed. Now we did not check this, but so we have to. But we are not changing it yet. In what people call spare time, you're going out, you're waiting for a boat. You go to the boat comes late. You're on a boat, or you're going out with your wife, or you're waiting for a friend, or the guest comes late. So there are always in our lives empty moments where we feel 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's never 20 minutes. Then I'll pull this out from my pocket, or it's on the day that I begin writing. It's always very close to me. The intention is not, it's just writing something. But most of the time, I write, I'm here, we are going out, or this or that. Then I write what I think that naturally, automatically, by itself comes to my mind. I begin writing it.
Do you have a notebook on you right now?
Yes. So I always carry these notebooks with me. Then I write, then I leave space. But I cannot draw. I cannot draw now, but I also do black and white. Then I color them if I'm happy. There are times in my life that I'm relatively more happy. Then I paint, or sometimes I start filling with an empty page, empty double page with text, sometimes with images.
When I first shared my writing ambitions with you, this was probably a decade ago, your first question was, do you keep a journal? Now I want to ask you, because I wondered at the time, the connection you saw between fiction writing and journal writing. In your opinion, what's the relationship between your fiction and journal writing, keeping a journal?
Yes, this is also a popular question. I also do not have one straight answer. But here, which is this picture, which do we see that this is changing, or where do I direct this? How do I change this?
The green one, I think. Let me double check.
We should have tried. Oh, okay. Here, okay. Here we saw. Okay. You saw these are two pictures which were made, drawn, very different times, but they share the same subject. A boat is approaching an island. Around the same time that I was writing one of my novels, my last novel, Nights of Plague, I was also partly busy with this book, selecting double pages, which were all photographed. I was not changing, turning the pages of these notebooks, but I was looking at on the screen. They were all photographed, and deciding to make groups, to categorize them, make a continuous narrative. Thank you for that. You have helped me. So when I was doing that, working for this book with your help in Istanbul, in my archives, I also suddenly noticed that the novel that I'm writing begins with exactly with the same image. A boat is approaching an island. We see a third picture. These are from different years. Unfortunately, year number is small. I can't see it. Maybe this is from 2014, for example. Mm-hmm. Okay, the islands far away are Princess Islands in Istanbul, and you can see them from my office. I'm a lucky person. My office overlooks a great view, but the boat and the island is not that small, close, so they are enlarging it. But the point here is this, that arbitrarily, naturally, what my hand does as a drawing, painting, actually, I'm also writing about it. But this was not self-conscious. Mm-hmm. This is not an explanation, but affinity. Mm-hmm. But the text I wrote is not, this picture is not an illustration of the text, nor the text is an explanation of the picture. But there is an affinity, a closeness between my mind produces images which my hands automatically can copy, or I write a text. But these are really different attitudes, different. As I said, when I paint, and I quickly paint, I am like a happy man in the shower. But when I write, very slow, very pensive. But in the end, I gave all of my life, more of my life to writing, and I think I have accomplished something more palpable in writing.
So for some pages, you write first and then illustrate them later.
No,
or the other way.
it depends really.
Depends.
I open there is a desire to paint, or there is something. Then I open the empty pages. Now, regularly each year, I keep 2 of these. But each one has 365 pages, or they are 400 pages, while I have 2 of them. That means half of the notebook is empty. There I also take some ideas, beginning of an essay, some pictures, then I return to them. Or maybe I can find here it is.
Yes.
Here is an empty space. One day I will paint inside this. I already wrote it here, depending on my mood. So when I was making this book, Pelin, gave them everything, digital version, not the notebooks themselves. I was busy with my writing, and Pelin would come to me and say, wow, this is a very interesting double page. Why don't you do a drawing like this? I listened to her suggestions. No, not a drawing like this. What about this? Or that kind of cooperation.
Yes, it was wonderful. It took me 5 months to read all of them. Best 5 months of my life.
Yes.
I want to talk about the title of this book.
Sorry?
I want to talk about the title of the book.
Okay.
Why did you choose Memories of Distant Mountains?
Did we plan to change a picture after that? Yes. We're going to talk about now. I have a book called My Name is Red, which is about medieval Ottoman, not medieval, 1590s Ottoman and Persian, and which is also a long tradition, miniaturists. That is a limited subject of Muslim painting. It's almost a contradiction in terms, but they painted, they drew, because their patrons, the kings, sultans, shahs, padishahs, they wanted, and who can stop them? When I wrote a novel about Ottoman painters, Persian painters of 16th century or earlier 15th century, I also read a lot of books, also other traditions. One of the things that I enjoyed reading about was Chinese landscape painting. So there are many Chinese landscape painting manuals, almost all Chinese masters also were writing painting manuals. Some of them are translated. Most famous ones are translated to English, so I read them. They are always like this. For example, this one we see, or the other one we may see now, are all these paintings are based on these English translation of these manuals. These manuals had one particular had a style in which they say how to paint the rivers, how to paint the seas, how to paint the close mountains, and how to render distant mountains. I was always attached to these, like the idea of distant mountains, and you have to do with one, and they will also say with this kind of brush, with this kind of bamboo, and this with this kind of thing, and you have to do it with one quick brush. But the idea of distant mountains, which I also partly explain and elaborate in this book, is about also the distant Princess Islands, sometimes even more further, the hills, which are some 50 kilometers away from Istanbul. Distant mountain means that, also has a symbolic meaning for me, that there is a almost transcendental meaning beyond these mountains. So I like the idea of distant mountains, and I decided to put together my drawings and paintings or selections from these notebooks, which I had some 30 of them, probably 6,000 pages, but probably some 4,000 and 3,000 double pages are written over, or there's something painted over. You have read all of them. I wrote all of them, but I did not read all of them like you. So I decided that I will give this mysterious title to the book and also elaborated that title. Here is also, and this is also related to Chinese painting. In these paintings, as you see, there is also, I think, influence of Chinese painting, but I don't know.
What about other inspirations?
Sorry?
Painterly inspirations, other painterly inspirations. There's definitely Chinese landscape painting, which was served as an inspiration.
Another influence on me is French Impressionist. It's obvious when I was a teenager and imagining one day I'll be, for me, the greatest painters were Impressionists. In fact, for everybody, the modern painting, its vitality, its strength, it comes from, I think, Impressionism. If you go to a museum, if you go to Metropolitan, everyone wants to have enjoys that these are the best parts of a museum. So it was natural that I wanted to work like Impressionism. Or one thing that also worked well with my civil engineer family is pointillism. It's Impressionism is doing with ching, 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 ching. Pointillism is that now the brush strokes are even smaller. I argue in this book and elsewhere that actually what the brush strokes that the Chinese painting guides talk about. You have to do these brush strokes, this or that, and this painting a bit illustrates that idea. Is also very close to impressionistic dots, Seurat or pointillists, and Chinese landscape painting I found similar or sharing the same spirit.
We have more pointillist paintings.
Okay, so, wow, okay. So here is another pointillistic picture, or whatever I say. Here is another. This is exaggerated and miniaturized version of my view from the Princess Island home that from my balcony in Büyükada.
You also like writing on your
Sorry?
paintings. You also like writing on your paintings, unlike that painting teacher you had growing up.
This maybe you go to psychoanalysis and then we exaggerate. There is a Freud film and the person relying on the coach says this happened, that happened. Maybe I should tell a story like that, but I'm saying this in tongue in cheek. I was in secondary school, in primary school, I loved the painting class because I was the most successful. And I had also a painting teacher who was proud of me. She would take me, show my picture to the class. I was so happy. I'll be a painter one day. And then she would first praise me. Look how Orhan did this painting. Bravo, Orhan. Then immediately afterwards scold me. But Orhan writes over paintings. No. It was, if someone writes over a painting, it's not a painting anymore. Because if you are a painter, you don't need words. Your job is to represent the whole world through pictures, images. If you write over a painting, that obviously means you're not a good painter. You can't draw a tree. You drew something and write tree to be assured that sometimes you do a figure because children cannot do human figures. You write father, mother. Okay. So, but the idea of although she celebrated my talents as a painter, she also was scolding me. But the idea of writing over a painting, or in fact, painting and writing combined. I have many projects. One of them, one day, a big museum will approach me and say, Mr. Pamuk, would you do an exhibition on the paintings on which there is written? So from Anselm Kiefer to Chinese landscape painting. It's such a big Liechtenstein to Ottoman calligraphic paintings. It's such an immense exhibition, but no one is asking. Maybe they will hear this and ask.
I want to talk about this one. This is one of my favorite double pages in the book, the one we're looking at right now.
Okay, yes.
No, going back. Just go back.
Go back?
Yeah.
Or maybe you do it. I'm sorry.
I'll do it.
You have to.
This one, yeah. How did you paint this one, and why does it say mysterious things on it?
Okay, so this is some of these paintings I do it with one sitting, then it's very painterly. And I also must confess, don't tell anyone, that most of the time if I paint, after 7 o'clock and after a glass of wine, I am a better painter. But then I paint, then I don't like it. Then, just like an oil painter who is working on a canvas, I do a white over it, then I change. This is one of those paintings that I worked and read it. It doesn't look like that, but it's like that. And in the end, I was finishing and I didn't know what. But then occasionally it's written at the bottom, it's mysterious things, which is a Knut Hamsun title. The writer of Hunger also wrote a book called Mysterious Things. So I alluded to that. Why boats? Why mountains? I see them all the time. That's why.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. So this is also a partly Chinese landscape painting. Maybe we can move over this. It's that. But I have a tendency to paint mountains, sea, and boats over them. But if you forget about the boats, but mountains, rivers, distant mountains, and sea is the basic categories of Chinese painting, and painting books advice is giving on this.
Perfect. Let's go to the next one.
Okay, now this book has also some mysterious dream
secret storyline. Yes.
Secret. Yes, you're right. Secret storyline. That it's actually carefully arranged, thought about, edited book. That I have a continuous dream that I see. Some religious parts, some scary parts, a bird is coming, an eagle probably, this or that. I wrote about this, but I don't have time, and we don't have time to explain it. But this is one of the rare that I did this painting right after the dream, and I had a sense of it. I was in a place like that. Then there is a eagle's nest, and I was climbing up. But anyway, let's forget it. They should read the book.
Yeah, just a little spoiler before you leave. There is a secret storyline. Only diligent readers will see it. Let's go to this.
Okay, this is partly inspired by William Blake's visions. I am inspired by William Blake, but this has a continuity. Science fiction is based on what if this, what if that. I did a series of painting in various notebooks. What if the sun is rising not from the horizon, but from it's a black sun and it's coming out of the earth itself. Anyway, this is a fantasy painting. It's not illustrating. It's just my romantic imagination developed this very quickly. One thing that when I write, I'm very slow. When I paint, I'm very quick.
I want to ask a general question about something that I used to see when I was reading your journals over the course of those 5 months. There are so many times in the journals when you are doing something like writing a page for your new novel, or you're in the middle of something else, and you write very sincerely that you stop doing that task and then sit down to write your journal or paint. And you describe this urge as similar to a sexual desire.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Okay, yes. I think maybe there's a picture related to that. Is there a picture? Yes, that is the
this
picture.
One, yeah.
The previous one, yeah. It is not a planned thing. Mm-hmm. Sexual desire, I also think, is not planned. You may think that you may have a sexual desire tomorrow or plan for this, But in the end, it comes automatically without planning. And what makes sex sexy is that it's not planned, maybe. Also, to paint, to be involved with colors, to do something. I think there is, when I write, I'm enforcing myself. I am limited. There is business side, money side, reader doesn't like it. The critic in me is always warning me, so I'm not free. But when I paint, since I was not thinking that I'm going to publish this, now that I published, maybe that is also spoiled, we are not there yet, then the drawing, painting has a very natural, very bodily, almost like sexual desire thing. And then and the joy is I'm following this immediate desire because my pen, my notebooks, my color pencils are not far away, and it's a break. But some voice in me is saying, hey, return to your writing. Hey, well, while on the other hand, I probably begin to think of publishing these notebooks also partly to be able to say myself, well, this is also work.
Yeah.
One day maybe readers will read that. One day maybe in 92nd, why people will come to hear about this. That is to make it more valuable, that my labors is worth something. It's not the time that I'm stealing from writing fiction.
Yes. Let's talk about the places where you write.
Okay. This is
all of which
in order to finish
beautifully
a novel,
depicted.
this is from a southern part of Turkey. In order to finish a novel, I went south and then very clumsy. This is a very clumsy picture. But on the other hand, I like to have my writing table looking at the landscape. Everyone does. This is not a particularly, I shouldn't be talking about this. But then these places also changing.
Yes.
Maybe we change this. This is also from the house at Princess Islands. Here, the colors, and I am very happy, and I am chronicling and also showing my place in the world. Writing this notebook, the things that I like most in life, writing and painting, I carry this notebook with me. They represent, they mean a lot for me, and I just want to illustrate here. Can we change the picture?
Yeah.
Okay, this is maybe...
yeah, this is your writing table in New York City, but the writing is not about New York, about Turkey.
This is, we see Hudson in through the window. This table is still there, and tonight I will return to this room. I think this was what year? In 2019.
Yes.
Erdogan one day, he was unhappy with Peter Handke received Nobel Prize, and he is, according to him, is against the Muslims, and he got angry, lost his temper, and he was in a university, so there was no prompter, no one wrote his speech, and they asked about Peter Handke. He continued, and he said, also they gave the same prize to a terrorist in Turkey. So I was, you know, at the right end. Right side bottom, you see a suitcase. The semester was over, and I was going to go back to Turkey. I was going to JFK, and everyone began calling and sending emails saying, Erdogan called you, you're a terrorist. What would you say? I don't know what to say. I was surprised, and I immediately didn't want to go back to Turkey, you know. Maybe something will happen. Let's wait. Then after a while, Erdogan's spokesman said, our president didn't mean Mr. Pamuk. And I rushed to the airport.
I love this story. I've seen a lot of your writing tables, not just the ones you regularly use, or the ones in the library, but wherever you go, you kind of paint a picture of the table where you write, and that's really interesting. Here we have your apartment's view in Istanbul, right?
Yes.
And the famous green chair, yeah.
Okay, this minaret is the minaret of Cihangir, and I live in the Cihangir neighborhood of Istanbul overlooking Bosphorus. Maybe this will be interesting for you Americans, because the chair on the right-hand side, the green chair, is known in Turkish carpenters or furniture shops as, I don't know whether you would laugh at this, as American comfortable chair. My father had an American comfortable chair, and in fact, and I'm using this. This chair is probably, my father used to use this in 1940s. He was already, this was a family property. So it's an old chair, and in fact, I'm embarrassed, but I should tell, Umberto Eco visited me in Istanbul, and he said this, and I said, this is my father's chair. And he said, I am a sort of a father to you.
Such a nice anecdote, yeah.
Maybe we change this.
Very good.
Okay, again, now I gave a lot of time to Nights of Plague. It's finally finished. It's finally finished. Then here I'm very happy. I wrote so much. It's such a long novel. I'm sometimes regretful about its length. Then I draw its... Don't ask me too many questions. I'll tell everything. Okay.
Yeah, as your friend and also as someone who edited this book, I've observed that you painted a lot when you were writing Nights of Plague.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes, because that's a good point. Nights of Plague is a historical novel. And also it's coming from a history that is photographed. That photography was invented and also printing also developed. So if you're writing a historical novel, if you don't want to make mistakes, first find the documents. Say, when I was writing My Name is Red, I found Ottomans were manic, bureaucratic scribblers. They wrote about everything, maybe prices in the bazaar. So when you have those lists, you understand what they eat, what they consume, what was the cost of a barber, what was the cost of a boat taking you from one side of the Bosphorus. In order to write Nights of Plague, which takes place in 19th century, late 19th century, early 20th century. Then I read, then photography was invented. I have looked a lot to Abdul Hamid photography albums. Abdul Hamid was the Ottoman ruler who ran Turkey for more than 30 years. And he was interested. He never left his palace. He was a bit paranoid. And he was also very much interested in photography. And Turkey was relatively rich and was giving a lot of money to European photographers to come to and to photograph his empire, which at that time included Mecca, Medina, Northern Africa, or Balkans. And he enjoyed, and I wrote the novel looking at these photos. And also, after looking at these photos, and also I also wrote that novel partly looking at 1897 Chicago Sears sales catalog, okay? Or also French supermarket Bon Marché sales catalogs, which there was a title at that time, catalog painter, that a person who paints every single object that a supermarket is selling. Wow. Then I also looked at them, wrote the novel looking at these objects, more or less thinking, well, if this was used in America and also in Europe, more or less the same objects will be in Turkey. It was very important for a historical novel not to make mistakes of accuracy. So this object was invented, it was used, the shape was this. After paying a lot of attention to that object, and also the style of these catalog painters influenced me so much that I also begin to draw paintings like in their style, or looking at photos doing painting. I also have a second idea, now museum owners may hear, that I also want to make an exhibition about this in late 19th century catalog painters. They were in a supermarket, in a Sears, I don't know, the Sears may be the same. Maybe there are 40,000 things from, they were saying also, a lot of farming objects at that time. So everything in black and white is drawn, and it will be great to have an exhibition. I'm also here to promote exhibition ideas, as you know.
That's fascinating. I love that exhibition. I would go, definitely. Let's look at
okay. This I remember the moment I did this again.
Yeah,
I regularly paint to these pages after 6 o'clock, after working. But here, this was around 10 or 11, wow, look at the landscape, look at the world. Suddenly I picked it up and did this in 5 minutes, really. Okay, I think, just like some people arguing that music is the purest of artistic or whatever we call this, human expression with art, I also think that landscape painting is the spirit of general painting. Figurative painting or still lifes is, for me, is not that important, especially figurative painting. You have to do it. There's no passport photo, is not invented. There's no photography. That's the reason. While landscape is really the romantic side of painting. I was in India, and this was the beach every day, every morning before I started working. This was the beach that I was visiting. And this is not even based on a photo, you know. This is as much as I remembered, and I do it. Yes.
I can confidently say, having looked at all of your paintings and these journals, you're definitely a landscape painter.
Yes, and they are called landscapists.
Landscapists, yes, definitely.
Yes. So these are also,
one, yeah.
Look, here I am now self-conscious about my notebook here. It's not casual. I divided the pages into three spaces for painting. Two of these paintings are based from my home. The other is based on a photo. The one on the left, on the top, is the building that German engineers built for the Anatolian range station. Okay, so this is for me. I lived in the islands and for quite a long time writing novels, and I write summer, and I'm much more productive in summer, and I idealize summer. Then this was the most furthest island, the faraway island. So the last boat would come, and they would tie the boat or
the dock, yeah.
Dock the boat.
Yeah.
Then I would visit every night the boat, because the captain and two persons, one cook, one captain. This is regular, just like in New York, city ferries, Bosphorus ferries. Then I would pay attention to their daily lives. They all had black and white TVs, very primitive, cheap TVs. And I romanticize them. Once I romanticize an image, then I come up with a very impressionistic picture. Yes.
These journals also serve less exciting purpose, which is to keep a track of your daily tasks and make a list of things to do for that day. And this is one such page. And the reason why we picked this is because my name is on it.
Yes.
And we don't remember why.
The names of two Turkish editors of the book are there. Then also you have to buy onions or whatever, whatever I like, These I like these notebooks. The fact that these notebooks serve many purposes. It may be the beginning of a novel, or it may be what to buy from the grocery shop.
Exactly. You also have a lot of New York paintings because you spend so much time.
Again, I'm a landscapist. This is what I see from my New York. But now we are at the time. Maybe we'll go to the questions. What is the other? Do we have more?
Let's show more.
Huh?
Let's show more.
Let's show more pictures. Okay. Oh, okay. Then here
now we come full circle to my first question about the relationship between your fiction and your journal keeping.
Okay. Now, this is a functional picture.
Yes.
I had the idea of Nights of Plague, an imaginary island, with different architecture or a different place, a unique place on its own. Okay, my imagination. I have to see a picture or a real place like this, and then I would invent it. So this is amber in India.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I'd love to have a novel written that takes place in this space. So I drew it. This again, I do a basic sketch of it, just like painters who come from France to Istanbul. They always do basic sketches, then they return to Paris, and then they color them. So I go home and color them. I thought Nights of Plague should take in a place like that. So there is a function here. When I was doing a boat is approaching an island, I was not aware that one day I will write a start a novel with this idea. But when I was doing this, or this one,
yeah.
yes, this is also from Mantua, the Ducal Palace in Italy. I thought, wow, yeah, I'd love, these places were helping, fueling my romantic imagination. That's why I continued to paint them. And even maybe I may not be describing the architecture here, but when I was writing my novel, I was thinking it's taking place in places like this, with this kind, with color, with an atmosphere like this.
All right. This is great. Let's show one more and then turn to the questions from the audience.
Okay, another. Where is this? This is Urbino.
Yeah.
And here I wrote, in its best days, 5,000 people were living in Urbino. In the island of Mingar, which I was inventing, should I also think of this, consider this? All of these drawings, paintings, has also related to I'm traveling, I'm not writing my book, I'm not a good person, I have to work. Instead, I'm looking around, sightseeing, doing cultural tourism, which is laziness. Then why don't I do and fill some pages, then feel that I'm doing some work? Partly I do, and then write what I think of my novel, and again write it's not something that I may forget, but I repeat myself, Each time you repeat yourself with drawing and writing, you develop the idea of your novel, the details of your novel also develop. I also write my mood when I draw this. Now we can go to questions.
Shall we? Yeah, shall we? Okay, great. There are some great questions from
the
the
questions
audience.
are already with you. Yes.
Yes. So first one is, you mentioned that you paint when happy. Does your writing depend on your mood as well?
Well, good question. This I want, although I'm teaching at Columbia University, I rarely go to the School of Arts where there is creative writing. But when I go, since I'm not born into English, I don't want to copy, edit, go over, check the English of the students, because that is what mostly writing is about. But there is also other side of writing, which I think I can help the students. This is as an answer to your question. Your question is, when do you paint, or what are the moods that make you paint? I understand. About painting, as I said, it's most of the time after 6, 7, or suddenly there is a burst of creativity or an idea. But when I write, I'm a disciplined, professional writer. My day, after breakfast, I don't even have a breakfast. I have my coffee and I sit at my table and read what I've written in the previous day. Then I begin to write. If I can't write, that is the distinction between being a painter and a writer. If I don't want to draw or paint, I don't look at the empty page all day. Okay, just forget it. But if I can't write as good as I want, I continue to look at the page. That is, for me, the distinction between professional or determined or born writer and casual writer is, born writer or determined writer sits at the table with the intention of writing, although he or she is not writing anything, or is not prolific, is not producing anything, is very busy. Probably after a while, if he or she is not writing, is very unhappy, but still have decided to fill this page with text. While when I paint, it's happiness, as this question implies, as I already said, that painting is a more irresponsible thing. But again, I'm underlining. But once I begin to paint, even these minor paintings and childlike paintings, then now you are carrying the responsibility. Then you are also. I also feel guilty. Wow, is this beautiful? When I paint, I don't ask myself, is this beautiful? Is this good? Okay, well done. You ask yourself. But when you say beautiful, does this deserve to be public? And that is a tough question, really. In the end, you may like a painting or a piece of writing because it represents you. Diaries are also like that. It's valuable to you. I go to my wife and I say, do you want to know what we did 1 year ago this day? She says, no. But in the end, then I can pull out a notebook and begin reading that, and I like it. Yes.
Here's an interesting one. Do you always travel with watercolors when you go?
Yes, good question. First, color pencils are in my right thing, but you cannot color watercolors. No, like all professional painters, that is, I'm not doing oil painting, looking at nature like impressionists. I am taking notes. For one of the great European painters, Melling, in late 19th century, late 18th century and early 19th century, came to Istanbul and did landscapes of Istanbul, which are very important for me. He did them. He first sketched them with black and white pencil. Then he went home and produced the color paintings. I think, for me, the idea of accomplished painting is, yes, Impressionists did the other way, is you go back to your studio, you take notes, then you paint over. Of course, once it's finished, there's this Orhan who wants to write over it.
Great. There is a question whose answer is actually in these notebooks if you buy the book, but I'm going to ask it to you. What are your favorite museums in New York City? Which ones do you go to most frequently?
Okay, as I said, I already answered. Every Friday or Saturday night, I go to Metropolitan. It's 40 minutes, if the weather is okay, it's 40 minutes of walk from my house. And I've learned so much there, and I also like the atmosphere there, that Friday and Saturday nights, the Metropolitan is open till 9 o'clock, and then it's not crowded, it's not touristy, it's the local people, it's the New Yorkers, and also I really feel free, so I go to the Metropolitan I really care about. In other museum, of course, MoMA, I'll go, always check to see what's there.
There are many times in this book when you say, I went to the Metropolitan with my friends, and always Friday night.
Yeah, do I? Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I also had in fact, this week, I'm also going to visit Metropolitan with a person. I really should write this. I have now begun a series of stories being published in Franco Maria Ricci's magazine in Italy, in Italian. I also want to make a book out of it. I'm not sure of that. I already wrote 3 episodes, and there was some copyright problems. I began writing 7-8 page stories, which I am hoping to form a book with, in which a guy very similar to me, but he's not married. He's a more miserable version of me. Visits Metropolitan every Friday or Saturday like me, and something happens. His relationship with a Goya picture, or he compares one painter to this, or he is lonely and this naked woman upsets him or makes him happy. These are episodes that can be separately published in a magazine, can be compared to Nabokov's Pinin, John Updike's characters. There are so many. You invent a character, then you begin publishing it in a newspaper, in a magazine, in a periodical. Then the adventures of the character gets bigger, it gets mysterious. Then I want to make these visits to the museum Metropolitan is also partly inspired by Metropolitan. Put now all their pictures, images, some of their images, selected images to their website, and encouraging you or the visitor to use them, to do something with them, even commercial things. My character is not commercial. He's very close to me. It's a way of, for me, writing about looking at pictures, the desire to be a painter, the desire to be alone looking at a picture. Then different thoughts come. When I go to museums, I always carry with this notebook with me. For me, a museum is a museum if there are empty chairs around and comfortable chairs or whatever, sit at that corner. I like sitting at a corner in a museum and take notes. Suddenly, my imagination begins to work. My argument, it's not the museumness of the museum, but here our imagination works in a very interestingly in a different space. That's why we also want to travel, and we are all attached to the architecturally different here is the architecturally different space also inspires us.
There is a literature-related one. Are there any diary writers that you admire from literary history?
My heroes, diary keepers, are not very different than my hero writer diaries. I think one of the greatest diaries is Virginia Woolf. First, her husband, after her death, the family edited out a very brief selection. Then they put them in volumes. She is a keen observer. And the funniest part I like about Virginia Woolf, there's so much in them, but he once met in her youth Henry James and imitates the way Henry James talks in a very fastly written diary piece. I like that. Of course, as a writer, my model, the person that I admire most, is Tolstoy. Tolstoy also kept diaries a lot. Unfortunately, it's all in Russia, maybe in French, available in other languages. I have not read complete Tolstoy diaries. They are scattered around. But what is interesting is when he wrote that his best novels, he did not write to his diary. That is, he was giving all of his writerly energies to War and Peace, Anna Karenina, or whatever he was writing, was not writing. I could not find Tolstoy writing simultaneously Anna Karenina and taking notes and saying, it's not good, I'm not doing fine, or whatever. I wanted to read Tolstoy talking about writing Anna Karenina. No. No? He may talk about it in his letters or this or that. So keeping a diary, continuing to keep a diary, in the end turned out to be a habit for me, and I'm very happy I had this habit, but it was not systematical. The fact that I can carry and put it in my pocket, maybe I put this back also, signifying we are coming and approaching the end of this sweet conversation, but it doesn't fit here suddenly. In the end, it turned out to be, I feel that I am carrying my writing desk and my art desk or my drawing desk with me. This gives me a sense of security, a sense of continuity. Filling a page with images, more with text also, for me, has also a sort of an obligation, a duty. If I'm not filling any pages, if I'm not drawing, if I'm not writing, I may be enjoying life, but after a while I begin to get pointless, stupid, lazy, so I have to do something. These diaries give me a sense of it.
On that note, thank you so much, Orhan,
for
this conversation, and thank you so much for your questions. This was a wonderful night. Thank you.